Oh, hello, hello. And I am wanting to actually come to you guys and have a quick discussion about the power of the tongue and the environment that we're in and how people are feeling. Um, I get the question often, since I've written my book and elevate to clarity, three whys of finding your purpose and breakthrough. And many people are like, well, how do you really actually know that you're clear? You're gaining the clarity. When is the breakthrough? I've been feeling like I've been waiting for my breakthrough for years, if not decades, right? And the biggest thing is that when I ask the question, what have you changed and what is your heart posture when it comes to certain things? Um, Based off of the environment, how are you feeling? What is your family dynamic like? What has your past trauma or experiences been like with your parents or family members and friends? And depending on how someone answered those questions will determine why they're in the storm so long, or why they feel like God has stopped answering them, or they can't hear him, or they don't, can't hear him clearly, or even at all. God is always listening. Yes, he may go silent, but the thing about that is your heart posture matters. And the thing that he is wanting us to do more is to lean in more and to pray more. That doesn't mean that just because we're going through something, trials and tribulations will be there. God never said anything in life were going to be easy. He wants us to continue in our faith and believe and trust in him, to lean in on him more, even in our hard times, because sometimes we can get so caught up in, when we do reach the top, when we do make it through the storm, when we do get to the other side, we forget that he was the reason why we made it through in the first place. And we forget to thank him. We forget to acknowledge his presence. We forget to make sure that we humble ourselves enough to identify his grace and mercy, right? So when we're trying to understand why we're in a season so long, and that it may feel like God has gone silent and you're not getting the clarity that you need and you haven't seen the breakthrough, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you've been saying to yourself? What is the conversation with yourself like? What has been the conversations with others been like? And most importantly, what are you saying to yourself even when you feel like God is not hearing you and he's not really coming out? Now, there's power in the tongue. And if you are feeling like whatever that thing that you said a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's real. It's really, really real. And if you're not careful, you can place yourself in the position that you cursed and the thing that you said that you didn't want or you were, because you said, I am this. You will end up finding yourself placed in those situations, maybe a year later, 5 years later, and you don't really realize why you're there. It's because you spoke it. And people don't really understand that in James 3, it's true, there's power in the tongue, and you can have the power to heal, you can have the power to destroy, you whatever it is you're literally speaking out loud about yourself, and even over your children and your family. We have to be very cognizant of those things, because when we're not, you're literally bringing that energy to your present situation or your future situation. So think about that. Ask yourself, like, what is your heart posture been over your finances? Are you constantly saying, I am broke, or I am this, or I am that? So ask yourself, how many times a day are you really saying this? How are you coping with the your situation over your relationship, your marriage, your children, or based off of maybe some of them are acting out? What are you saying to your kids out loud? Because you're covering them with your words, right? And when we do this, it brings forth that energy. And when you don't see it right away because you're angry, you're frustrated and confused, and you just want to get your feelings out and you want people to hear you. But God says, be slow to speak and quick to listen for a reason. Because we can react and we say things, and then you think about, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Now I have to go apologize. Well, it's already been said. And if you don't go back and repent about the thing that you said, then it's still out there. So think about what I'm saying, because I've had to learn this thing. And I used to go around, I tell my husband all the time, and I'm saying, like, you know what? I have to watch what I say, because a lot of what I was saying about certain things are actually coming true. And I've noticed that. And I've always noticed even when I was younger, I would say things and I'm like, oh, okay. And then it would happen. Even with my car, there was a certain car that I wanted, and I actually sat in it and I said, I can see myself driving in this car. And years later, not even thinking about what I said, I ended up driving and purchasing that particular car. And certain things, living in the house that I live in, I remember walking in the house and saying, oh, this is a really nice neighborhood. I can see myself living here. And it's really nice. You know, I can see this. And I actually live in the house. And I'm really, really telling you the truth that this has been happening to me for a really long time. Now, most people are like, well, are you a millionaire? Can you just bring forth money? It's never happened that way. However, when certain situations of my finances take a turn, and I don't see how things are going to happen, or especially if something I did not bring forth myself and it has something to do with someone else, God has always turned that thing around for my good. And He's always been there. So that's definitely a testimony that I want you to understand. And because I'll be like, God, I don't know. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do this. And how is this going to work? I trust you. You need to take on this situation for me, because I don't know what else to do. And for sure, He's always made a way. For example, I was pregnant with my first son. And I'm going to tell you the story because I want you to actually understand what I mean by this. I was pregnant with my son, and I there was a situation to where there was a bill or something that way to that effect that I was responsible for paying, and I was doing everything that I needed to do, calling and talking to the people, tried to get it situated. And I wrote down names of each representative I've talked to every single time. I wrote down the conversation and all of these things. So I get a letter in the mail saying, hey, you owe X amount of dollars. It was a really large sum of money. And I was like, wait a minute. This person said that they were going to get back with me. They never did. So I called and I said, hey, I called and I spoke to this person. She never called back. I spoke to this representative. He told me this, and no one ever followed up with me. But I did everything that I was supposed to do to rectify this account. And I tell you what, they didn't say it on the phone, but I did receive a letter saying the bill had been taken care of 30 days later and not to worry about that bill. So I believe whatever you're going through, whatever situation that you feel that you can't get through, speak life over that thing. Speak truth. You have to be honest with where you are and think about what you've said about the situation, even currently or in the past, because you'll end up having a revelation based off of what you think about and how you actually handle the situation based off of the conversations that you've had. I'm a firm believer that my mouth has power. The things that I say really, really matter. So I'm very cognizant of that. I'm very aware of that, not only because I have over 25 years, almost 30 years now of leadership, and then I'm in business, and I have to be very careful of the things that I say to people, because I really want them to understand how God is actually moving, how God moves, how he expects us to do and say a certain thing, and to be able to see one another, to make an impact as influencers, as business owners, as entrepreneurs. And even if you work in a 9 to 5 job and you're a leader at your job, you still have to think about the things that you put out there to others, because they easily can actually come true. And then too, you want to figure out why you're going through what you're going through. So, not to ramble, but I really want you guys to understand that there's power in the tongue. And if you're looking for something, or to try to get out of your situation, or just try to even make a little bit of sense of it, ask yourself, what were the words that you said in the past? What has been some of the conversations that you've gotten on the phone with, and you're ranting and raving with your friend, and you think it's just a regular conversation, but you literally spoke something out, and now you're going through that very thing? You shouldn't be surprised by that. If you really sit down and think about the things that you've said and the situations you've been in, you'll probably start to understand what I'm saying. And if this is you and you can relate, leave me a comment. I really want to know if you are actually understanding what I'm saying. Is this connecting a little bit of truth for you, giving you some clarity, right? And again, I don't want to confuse anybody, but I was reading James, been in James for a couple of days, and it just, you know what, that's so true. And it just brought me back to a lot of the things that I've said. And I'm like, it's happened. It's happened to me. And so I wanted to share that with you. And hopefully you can actually think about the things that you say and who you say them to, and especially if it's your husband, significant other, your children in your home. You think you're having a casual conversation, and it's really not a casual conversation when you're literally putting out there in the world your actually true feelings about yourself or someone else. So be very, very careful about that. I hope this is giving you some clarity. I hope that you are taking the right steps to get to the other side. If you're going through a storm, nothing will last. Everything is temporary. Remember that. It's not a permanent thing until God says it's over. So if you're still hearing my voice, if you're watching this episode right now, there's another chance to get it right, to do it again, to repent, ask for forgiveness, grace, and mercy for whatever it is that you've said, and move on, because tomorrow has its own set of problems, right? So if you think about it right now, while you're listening to this, you have an opportunity to make it right so that you can actually move forward tomorrow, because it's a new day. It's a new you, right? All about that. The thing that I want you to take away from this is, think about how you want to start your tomorrow in a positive way, thinking about what you're saying. Listen more, speak less, and allow God to bless you abundantly. I'll see you at the top. Take care.